Welcome back to Flashback Fridays, and this week I'll be taking another look at a classic 90s Kenner Star Wars 12-inch action figure. And this week it is the turn of Luke Skywalker in his ceremonial gear, or you might know him better as his Yavin 4 costume from the end of A New Hope. Despite only wearing this outfit the once in one scene in the entire film trilogy, and it's quite a brief scene at that, I've always quite liked this costume and this look for Luke Skywalker. A lot of the elements are actually more suited to Han Solo. In fact, he even seems to be wearing Han Solo's pants. But nevertheless, I still think this is quite a cool look. So, without further ado, let's start off by looking at the packaging. Now, this was a slightly later release from a later wave than some of the other figures I've been looking at so far, so we can see straight away that the gatefold flap cover has gone. Instead, it is mostly window display with a border, and on that border, of course, we can see the starfield behind it, but gone are the TIE fighters, gone is the Death Star, and gone is the production image that we're used to seeing. However, we can see that image on the side panel of the packaging, so this is still pretty consistent with the other figures in the line if you want to stack these up on the shelf. And then finally on the reverse we have the standard Star Wars logo, the standard bit of text we're used to seeing about Star Wars, and then of course we have the other figures in the line. We can see Grand Moff Tarkin, we have the Sand Trooper, and of course Greedo, which is a pretty cool figure. And then at the very bottom we have this slightly larger window displaying Luke Skywalker in this ceremonial scene that we see at the end of A New Hope. So, moving on to the figure himself, I'm pretty sure this will look quite familiar to anyone who's owned any of the other previously released Luke Skywalker figures in this line. It is essentially the same body mould and head sculpt, but there are a few little tweaks that are worth mentioning. By this point in the line, we'd had a couple of Luke Skywalkers already. Of course, we had the New Hope, the farmer's outfit that we see him in. That was released in the very first wave. And then we also had Luke Skywalker in his X-Wing pilot outfit as well. All of these figures used the same head sculpt, but the key difference is that those early releases didn't have much in the way of paint apps in the hair. As we can see here, there's actually a number of different washes to give it a bit more texture, a bit more depth, make it look a little bit more realistic. Those early releases were just pure yellow, pure gold. There was no real texturing, no paint washes running through it to give it that texture. Now, in terms of the head sculpt itself, I don't think this is a bad likeness of Mark Hamill, but it's very, very soft. I don't think it's very good either. So it's not bad, it's serviceable, but not brilliant. The costume, though, I have to say, is actually very nice. I really like what they've done with this costume. It has a lot of different textures in it, and it's very bright and colourful and quite fun to look at. One of the accessories it comes with is his ceremonial medal. I think this is a nice touch. Of course, this is removable, it's optional, you don't have to have it, but I think it's quite nice. It goes around his neck nice and easily, and it's actually quite nicely sculpted for what it is. It's a little bit chunkier than it appears in the film, but this is pretty solid stuff. There's no real paint apps to speak of, but this is a nice little extra detail, which I think is quite fun. I really love this jacket. I love the detailing on it. I love how we have those sort of rib pouches running up the sleeve there. I think that's really, really nicely tailored. It looks really good. It fits him quite nicely. And it's made of this faux leather material that's actually a little bit soft and padded, which makes it quite nice to the touch as well. So I think they've done a really nice job with this jacket. But also quite pleasingly, underneath we have this black shirt, which is actually very tight fitting. This looks really, really good. This is nice and fitted. And actually it has a resemblance to what he wears in Return of the Jedi, which is a nice touch I'd never noticed before in the film. And of course it is optional, you can take this jacket off if you want, so this is quite cool. We've already seen on other figures in the line this holster effect where you can store the blaster, but I think this works really well. I think it's a really nicely rendered bit of equipment here. It's made of rubber, of course, but it fits very tightly to his waist and to his leg there, and of course it holds his blaster very snugly, so this is really cool. You can also see here that pinstripe on the trouser there. We know that Han Solo wore these trousers in The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, but this is something I'd never picked up on before, but it is obviously screen accurate. Luke Skywalker does wear these pants at the end of A New Hope, so perhaps they were standard issue from the Rebel Alliance. And then of course he has those rubber boots. We've seen these before on other figures. I'm not a huge fan of them. They're quite chunky, they look a little bit clunky, a little bit out of proportion, and they are a nightmare when you want to stand these figures independently without a stand, because they are going to tend to lean over or fall over, so they're very difficult to pose with these boots, but they look fine when they're on display. In terms of articulation, he does fare slightly better than some of the previous releases. He's got the swivel at the neck, so far no different here. Of course, he can spin his head all the way around. He's got the ball joint in the shoulders. Again, we've seen this many times before. Those arms can lift up and out, all the way to the top and all the way to the back. There's a little bit of resistance because of the material of the jacket that he has here, so this is a little bit more difficult, a bit more stiff to get the positions you might want to get, but if you persevere you can get there. You just got to work with that fabric. The good news though is that he does have some proper articulation in his arms. He has an upper bicep swivel, he has a single joint at the elbow, so none of that rubber arm business anymore, which is great, and he's got articulation at the wrist, which can rotate all the way around and hinge forwards and backwards a little bit as well. He's also got articulation in the waist, so he can turn from side to side. There is a ball joint here that will allow him to lean from side to side and also bend forwards and backwards ever so slightly, so this is much improved. He does have the standard rubber legs, so they do kick out to the side, they kick forwards, and they kick backwards. But as we've seen, there's no real articulation in the legs, they just have this rubber sort of wire inside that kind of clicks into place, and yeah, there's not much you can do with that. He also has quite a few accessories. We've already seen his medal, but he also comes with his blaster, his lightsaber, and of course his lightsaber blade. These are removable, so you can put these together or take them apart, which is fantastic. As you can see, he has no problems holding his blaster. The blaster is a little bit out of proportion, it's a little bit chunky, a little bit larger than in the film, but nevertheless, there's still quite a nice sculpt, a lot of detail on here, and some decent paint apps as well, and as I said, no problems holding this whatsoever, which is cool. More importantly, he comes with his lightsaber. This is very nicely sculpted. I love that the hilt and the blade can be separated, so you can just have it without the blade in. I think that's a really nice touch and quite clever. And there is a little hook there, so you could hook this onto pants if the belt allowed for it. Nicely sculpted, nicely painted. Can't really fault this. And again, when it comes to holding it, it's absolutely fine. It's a nice secure grip, and it looks fantastic when the blade is in there. This looks really, really cool, very colourful and very fun. And even though in this outfit he never used his lightsaber, this looks fantastic. I really like the colour combination, the blue against the yellow. That contrast is really colourful and bright and fun, and yeah, I think this is a really nice figure to put on display. Quite a nice addition to this line, even though, as I said, his appearance is very, very brief. I think it's quite a striking outfit for the character. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe, as there'll be plenty more videos soon.